This video describes the third and final day of my 2-night, 20-mile kayak fishing trip on the Delaware River with Dave, a friend from college. We were in the Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area, outlined by the red circle. Today's journey is just a bit under 7 miles and takes us from the Alosa campsite to Smithfield Beach, where we would be leaving the river. It's not even 10 o'clock yet, and we are departing Alosa. Last night, we heard thunder off in the distance after dinner, but had only the merest sprinkling of rain, just enough to chase us into the tent. You know that it is the light rain that gets you the wettest, saying to yourself that you don't need to seek shelter, so you stand outside like a fool, getting damp. Continuing from the previous evening's rainy weather, this morning started out cool and overcast. David and I were wondering how this change in the weather might affect the fishing. As it turns out, I was able to make a catch within the first 10 minutes of setting out. So I guess the colder weather didn't hurt things at all. You may have noticed that I have a tether on my fishing rod, the green spiral cord that runs from its handle to an anchor ring at the bottom of the kayak. David had 2 fishing poles when he and I made this same trip last year. He had one unused pole stuck in a holder behind his seat. When he made a cast with the second rod, his hook snagged the first rod, pulling it out of the holder and setting it free to sink to the bottom of the river, to join countless other fishing rods there. Learning from his lesson, I put tethers on my fishing rod, net, camera, and every bag and loose item in the kayak. Here you see one of the unfortunately notable landmarks on the river, the Susquehanna Roseland power line that is not only an assault to the eye, but also leaves a wide scar on the land that stretches for 150 miles from Susquehanna Nuclear Power Plant in Luzerne County, Pennsylvania, to Roseland, New Jersey. There is always an upside and a downside to any major project like this. More reliable energy versus disruption of the natural landscape. It was at this point that Dave suggested we stop for lunch, recommending an area on the left bank of the river. I did notice that there was a different and peculiar pattern of waves on the water, but failed to recognize the significance. So I headed straight for the far shore. Here, the current cuts diagonally across the river from left to right in an especially shallow spot. I saw the current speeding up and more rocks appearing near the surface. Soon, my kayak was bumping along, its bottom scraping on the gravel. Suddenly realizing the situation, I began making furious paddle strokes in an attempt to get my boat through the shallows to remain floating in deeper water. My feeble attempts were futile, and eventually my trusty craft heeled over to port and stopped, firmly wedged on a rock. I attempted to break free by prying off the bottom with the blade of my paddle, but only managed to turn the bow in a downstream direction before coming even more firmly stuck. I gazed sadly at the free-flowing channel of water that was only 15 yards away. I finally accepted the indignity, slammed the paddle down into its holder, and stepped out of the boat. Its bottom scraping over the rocks and gravel, I only needed to drag the kayak about 10 feet before I was able to once again take the helm and proceed on my way. It was a curious feeling, standing safe and secure in ankle-deep water, the same river that I had seen foot-tall white-capped waves in the many rapids. After floating downstream in the current far enough to clear the shallows, I made a hard turn to the left to reach our intended lunch spot.
Shallow over here too. You might want to go down a little bit. That was exciting.
I had a bit of a disappointed grimace on my face as I munched Gorp trail mix, but I escaped the misstep in the shallow water unscathed. I did put things out of mind while, like Bob Dylan, I enjoyed sitting on a bank of sand to watch the river flow. Here, a great half-submerged boulder known as Van Camp's Nose sticks up from the right bank of the river, no doubt related to Isaac Van Kampen, who in the late 1700s lived almost a dozen miles upstream from where this rock is located. I heard a loud, deep, and obnoxious sound, something like a cross between someone sneezing, coughing, and burping. I looked across the river to discover a small group of large, gangly, and long-necked birds. They were double-crested cormorants, birds that dive underwater to feed.
We ought to be hooking up every other cast.
Yeah, this looks like prime water.
It is.
It's going to bump into it.
That's right.
It's one big boil right there in the middle of that rapid.
But all this is really good water here.
Sadly, our trip had come to an end as the Smithfield Beach boat ramp came into view.
Hey, that dropped pretty quick, didn't it?
Dokąd idziesz? Polish for to where are you going? I knew that I had just visited a special place with a good friend. I am simply rubbish at trying to back up a trailer, so I left that to my much more experienced friend. Dave accidentally turned on the windshield wiper for the rear window, and driving my car instead of his, he didn't know where the switch was to turn it off. No longer possessing the strength to lift a kayak onto the roof of a car, I enjoy the boat trailer for the low lifting height and the ease of launching and retrieving the boat from the water.
Yeah, that won't go because the window didn't push down.
With the miles on the water now behind us, all that is left are the memories.